Doodle-doo-doo-doo. Meow. Hello everybody, welcome to Xucaboa 100% Vanilla Baby, episode number 23. As you see, I have 0 of my 54 mods enabled. Let's load up our last save, episode 22, not the UFO challenge. And as always, I'd like to say thank you, gracias, obrigado. Just so you know, there's no new citizens this episode because I made it very quickly right after the last one. And here is our photo of Xuca for this episode. Here she is wearing a cone and eating out of her dish that we made using egg cartons. So that way she didn't make a huge mess when she was eating. If we look at what we did last episode, you see I added a lot of jungle and rocks over into that corner of the island. On top we put a few selected buildings near the upper level of the cable car stop. Here we have the media center from Concerts DLC. We named this the Zeph RB Media Center. I've learned it's Zeph RB. A little bit of detailing around the beach with some palm trees. We put in these 1x4 residential units that grew the vegetation. I think that's a cool look for the jungle area. Here we have the Just Kano Disaster Response Unit. Pretty impressive building. Comes with a nice helicopter pad in the background. And here we have the Kyle D. Lazaret Plaza with the 3 skinny statues overlooking Sunset Beach. And if you remember last episode, I was talking about how I need to start thinking about traffic. So if we look at our map here, you see we've got a little bit of a hotspot at the roundabout, a little bit of a hotspot at the Xucaboa Beach termination of the Scroggins Highway, and then onto the main part of the highway with the Parklow interchange that we had put in, because that's really the only way to get on the highway, are those 3 spots. So what I'd like to do is just connect that eastern side over here. I'm going to make a very large Trumpet Interchange. It's going to be large, kind of flowing and smooth. It's going to be organic. I'm not going to worry too much about symmetry or anything like that. I want it to be smooth. And I was thinking, instead of doing a tutorial, because my first thought was that, I'll do a tutorial of how to do an interchange like this. As I was doing it, I'm like, wow, I just move the camera around so much and look at everything from so many different angles. And this is really kind of a unique spot. It's being designed with the terrain in mind, and also that there's this rail connection. So instead of doing a tutorial, I'm just going to do it sped up a little bit. You can still see what I'm doing. It's a little bit fast, but it's not too shaky or fast that you won't know what's going on. You can just follow along and see what I'm doing as I build this. As I'm beginning, I'm using the slope terrain tool to kind of smooth out the existing areas that I'm going to keep and make sure that the terrain is lined up exactly the way I want. So you see here, I'm trying to factor in the rail connection that's going to go through, and I don't want it to be too sharp of an angle right at the bottom there, but I do want it to hook around and get on the other side, because that's what it had been doing. And so looking at that, you see, you're going to notice a theme to my building style if you haven't already. When I'm working with roads, when I'm working with terrain, I go back and forth a lot. I'll connect and then I'll delete and then I'll connect again, and I'll just kind of keep working my way towards the middle, so that way everything is the smoothest angle, the nicest curve, things like that. So I just keep going back and forth, back and forth. You notice I did not delete every bush before I did this, because I think, at least for right now, it won't be that many bushes that I'll be building over. So I didn't want to take so much time to do that. Here I'm using the slope terrain tool to build a long, gradual ramp coming from the outside of the map connection over to this, where this bridge is, where the other highway is going to go underneath. I'm going to use some gravel roads here and start curving them around so that they follow this slope that I built, this ramp. And sometimes you see I use freeform, and sometimes I use the bend or curve road tool. It depends which one works best. And so then after I put in the gravel roads, I just upgrade back to the 3-lane highway. Here I've got a little bit of terrain variation, a little bit of elevation change, so I need to factor that in. I'm going to use these gravel roads to create guides. And I'm thinking, do I want to follow the curve of the highway or do I want to follow the curve of the rail? Because either of those could be cool. So I'm going to start out doing this. All right, and that's going to become my off-ramp. I'm going to change the curve of the rail now because I think that it was just a little bit too close for what I wanted. And instead of bringing it right back down there, I'm going to just move it just like that, connecting both ends again. And there we go. Now here I'm going to do the underpass part. I'm going to use a curved, just random, nothing having to do with the alignment of the roads above it or anything like that. I'm just trying to curve underneath and fit in those pillars. And sometimes you have to be careful because if you use the gravel roads and then you upgrade, it doesn't fit with the pillars in. But there you see I did it, and that'll be the kind of the starting point for this new highway we're going to build. For at least the starting point for where I'm going to start building it. And here I'm trying to follow the rail a little bit for the big on-ramp. And then this off-ramp will be a curve. All right, remember this is really just a very, very large, long trumpet interchange. Okay, there are a lot of tutorials on YouTube on how to build a trumpet interchange, and they're great. There's a lot of friends of mine from the City Skylines vanilla group make them. A lot of other creators have tutorials on how to make them. I recommend watching plenty of them to get different ideas, but in general, you can make a very compact, symmetrical one, and those can be good. The trumpet interchange is a very good interchange. But what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to create a major system interchange, okay, to go from one highway to another highway. And I'm trying to fit it in on this hill with a rail connection nearby, and then have it be just a very kind of sweeping, flowing highway start, because this really is the start of our new highway, are these ramps that'll go onto it. But in all actuality, it works just like any other trumpet interchange. I'm going to have the two exits on this side, or the entrance and exit on this side, and then I'll have two on the other side that kind of sweep off. You'll see what I mean. So much of what I do when I'm building roads and everything is to go back and forth to get everything very smooth. All right, unless it's a small project I'm working on, it takes me a lot of time to look at everything from every angle and to make sure that that there's no bumpy elements to it, that the terrain is smooth enough in all spots. Because sometimes you build something and then you add another connection and the nodes create an elevation change. So I really like to go back and forth and check everything. That probably is the biggest motivating factor in me not making this a tutorial video per se. Just because if you were watching me do it, I just go back and forth, and I don't think that's necessary for everyone. It's just something, it's the way I like to do it. Always making small adjustments to the terrain, small adjustments to the angles of the roads coming on and off. Seeing what works best. All right, and doing a project like this, of course, I've got $2 million bucks in the bank right now, so I've got the cash to play around and delete things a little bit and wait until they are looking just the way I want them to. If you have limited funds, I don't recommend undertaking a project like this unless you really know what you're doing and you have a real strategy for financial management, I guess, during the project, because otherwise it can become astronomically expensive. You'll see that I'm using these extensions of certain roads to try to get a parallel curve. All right, and sometimes it works well and sometimes it doesn't. So here I'm trying to kind of create follow the same angle as that inner lane. with the outer lanes, and I'm having a bit of a hard time. So I'm just gonna try to go back and forth a little bit and make it work. There you saw I was just eyeballing it. Alright, so we've got the trumpet part of the Trumpet Interchange build. So now I think we can start preparing the terrain over on this side for the on and off ramp that go to that inner lane, that inner piece of the highway. And this part I'm going to flatten out here because I want to build a bridge that goes right across the river, right before the bifurcation, right before the fork in the river. So yeah, I'm gonna, here you saw I deleted some of the bushes, which is something I really do want to do always, just because I use so many trees. But overall, I think I'm not overdoing it with building over top of bushes. So yeah, you see, there I go. I put in this highway connection underneath, and now looking at this curve, it looks a bit weird, so I'm gonna redo it. And I just delete back until I find a good smooth angle that I like, and then I start fresh. Using those techniques about how to make parallel roads. If you remember, I have a 2-minute tutorial. It was my first 2-minute tutorial on how to do vanilla parallel roads with no mods. It's pretty easy, although sometimes when you're doing a very organic project like I'm doing here, it can be a little bit more complicated, but the fundamentals of it still work all the time. If you use little connector guides and other things like that with the curve road tool and the bend road tool, you can get very parallel roads. Alright, so now we're going to start preparing for the off-ramp. And I want this to be very long and flowing. But if you look, I mean, I'm really going quite far from where the other highway is. This is going to be a very, very long connection. And really the reason for that is the terrain change, the height change from where that bridge starts ramping down to where the on-ramp is going, or the off-ramp is going to work. Now on this side, for the on-ramp, we're going to have to go over top of the railroad track. And to do that, I'm going to need to make a little bit of a bridge and then have a long ramp that smoothly goes down. And as I upgrade, it looks pretty smooth on the first try. Not always easy to get it very smooth on the first try, but this time I think I pulled it off. But now I want this fork in the highway to be a nice double angle instead of that vanilla angle that looks really weird. And you know, I just have to work it back and forth a little bit and delete that one segment of bridge to get it just so that it's right. And there we go. That is the outline of what I'm going to do. Let me try to build a bridge across this river. It's actually a pretty wide river. It doesn't look like it always when you take a quick glance at it. It looks kind of small, but then when you build across it, you see it is quite wide. So we'll put the bridge there. We will do a similar thing. I just pull off the angle of the highway a little bit so that way I can fit in that fork. And now here I'm looking at that, and that is an extremely long ramp. I think it can be just right to there. We'll do our lane mathematics. Make sure that we have the 2 and 1 going into a 3. And here I'm doing my fork again. Now, the magic numbers I found last episode were 60 degrees and 150 degrees, because those are both kind of the same thing depending on which angle it's measuring from. Here's a photo of Xuca staring at me like a creep. Our surprise, random, without warning photo of Xuca, as we've all come to expect and love. Now I'm starting to extend the highway out towards the island. And I'm just putting in some random curvature to it. No real specific reason for that just yet. In real life, if a highway was being built and there was a curve in it, there'd be a reason. It's because there's a terrain thing, or there's something already exists there, someone owns the property, all kinds of reasons. But this is not real life. We are building in vanilla. We don't have the luxury of creating a backstory for every building decision we make. So why does the highway curve right there? Because I wanted it to. I don't know. Now here, as I'm upgrading these, you see that I've got it a very, very tight fit, but it looks good. It's very, very tight together. Every now and then it doesn't work, and I have to just realign the gravel road a touch, because it's like a fraction of an angle that makes it not work right. But when I get it, then it's really looking quite nice. And then I'll go back and redo this little piece again. And I think I'll just eyeball it. That's close enough. Close enough for me. Now we've got I want to keep this little ditch that was here. I kind of like it. And we'll build a highway bridge. Now, if you have that suspension tower go across it, then you can't put the two next to each other because it takes up space. So I'll put in the one, and then I'll upgrade it to a gravel road, and then re-upgrade it to a highway, and then I can put in the other, and it works just fine. And I'll smooth out the terrain underneath it to make sure that it's kind of like it was before I built. And now I'll just start making my connection, my final connections. Now here, I'm gonna make a decision, because it's a 3-lane that's gonna open up or close down into a 2-lane. And so I've decided to make the 3-lane go across the canal, and then it turns into 2-lane. So that should be fine, because on this island, at least so far, the traffic's gonna be pretty light. It's gonna move very fast. There's no reason for anyone to get off right there to leave the highway right there, so I'm not too worried about it. We'll take a look around and see if there's any glaring issues. I don't think so. I think it's looking all right. Now let's see if we can find a car. Unpause the simulation, and we'll wait and see what kind of traffic starts moving. I don't anticipate a lot of traffic coming this way just yet, because the island is still not heavily populated. Most people are still over in the first tile, and so it wouldn't make sense for them to come over this way to get on the highway, but we'll see. We got one here. Let's take a look. It is a Jeep with a trailer. Thomas Miller. Uneducated adult tourist driving out of the city. Let's follow his car and see if there's any bumps or weird things that don't look nice. So far, so good. Now, I'm not detailing any part of this highway in this episode. That's going to be a lot of time and effort, and I don't even think it makes sense until I have build around it, have some kind of city expansion in that direction before I start detailing it. So I'm going to leave it undetailed for the foreseeable future. Unless I start building something near it, then I'll start detailing around it. But yeah, you just follow this Jeep going, and then bang. Oh, he did the merge over all the way in the left lane. Reckless driving, but it worked. So now we'll just wait and see if we can get a car going in the opposite direction. There's one. Let's follow this car. Sports car heading into the city. So far, everything's looking pretty smooth. Happy with that. There are some vehicles using this new highway. Not too many still. Look like mostly tourist vehicles. Which makes sense because the island has a lot of tourism going, happening at the beach. And another place. Ooh, I lost the car. Ay caramba, come back. All right, pause, click, go. Look at that. Driving the sports car with a sunset in a mountain. I imagine we're part of some kind of 80s TV show right now. Let's see. He's not getting off there. All right, there we go. Going down to the beach. Going down to Sunset Beach. Ooh, going down towards the ferry, the cable car. Let's see, where are you gonna park? And oh, he put the car in his pocket. That is okay. Robert Lee. Oh, that's not the greatest name, but that's all right. Visiting the juice bar. I hope you enjoy your juice, sir. And we'll just zoom out and take a look at the city, time lapse it a little bit till we get till morning time. I think that this new highway connection really does offer us a lot of opportunity to expand the city in both on the island, in the original first tile area, and then over here in this part. Now we've got a place where we can start branching off from, making connections. I'm looking forward to this. I think we've got some potential here. Some real good potential for the next few episodes. Thank you for watching. This has been Xucaboa, 100% Vanilla Baby, episode number 23, and I will see you next time.